Communications and Digital Technologies Minister Malatsi has come under fire in Parliament for his policy proposals that will see foreign ICT companies not compelled to adhere to the 30% local ownership rules that currently pertain in the sector. He proposes that these companies be allowed to meet transformation requirements through what he calls equity equivalence. Malatsi received a hostile reception at the Communications Committee on Tuesday. Some parties accused him of trying to change the rules to allow Elon Musk's Starlink not to comply with the broad-based black economic empowerment laws. He tried in vain to explain that the announcement of these changes a few days after President Cyril Ramaphosa's meeting with US President Donald Trump was a mere coincidence. Hello everyone, welcome back to Joe Talks Politics. I am your host, Joseph Musia. Let's get right into this. The levels of mistrust and ideological posturing among South Africa's politicians are at an all-time high. Minister Malatsi has now tasted this firsthand as MPs from different parties express their rejection of his attempts to provide an alternative way of investing to the requirements that they should cede 30% of their South African operations to local operators. To put this issue in its proper context, though, the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition introduced the Equity Equivalence Program for multinationals in 2017. This was aimed at addressing the challenges of broad-based black economic empowerment ownership requirements for multinational companies, particularly those with global policies that restrict share ownership. The program aims to allow companies to meet their BEE obligations through alternative mechanisms such as equity equivalent investment programs or EIPs rather than direct share sales. In other words, EIPs are not Malatsi's invention. It did not help that the chief white monopoly capitalist, Johann Rupert, used his invitation to the White House when President Cyril Ramaphosa was there to promote a particular company.
We have too many deaths, but it's across the board. It's not only white farmers, it's across the board. And we need technological help. We need Starlink at every little police station. We need drones.
It was soon after these remarks that Minister Malatsi announced the introduction of his policy directives. It was to be expected that the EFF would see red flags all over this policy proposal. There is nothing that triggers the red berets like the name Rupert.
We're talking about Starlink here. I don't think we should tiptoe around it. We're talking about Starlink. There might be many other foreign satellite companies that have interest in operating in South Africa, but there's a specific interest in Starlink, and I think Cyril will speak to the political context about that as well. But I'm interested in, has there any been consideration of the impact the introduction of foreign satellite companies operating in South Africa would have on the local telecommunications industry, specifically as it relates to jobs? Because there's a myth going around here that the introduction of Starlink will achieve two things, that it will achieve rural access to internet connectivity and as well will increase jobs. How will a satellite that will operate and be ran remotely from another country impact on the local telecommunications sector's jobs? And considering especially the high unemployment rate in this country. But secondly, what is the knowledge of the department on the costs related to the introduction of foreign satellite operators? Will it necessarily bring higher connectivity levels to rural communities? Will it be cheaper? Comparative to what?
It is amazing the level of opportunism that is in our politics.
It's also the BEE Commission itself that laments the lack of transformation of the ICT sector. The sector features in the top 5 of the less transformed sectors in the country, amongst agriculture, property, and financial services. Would we be correct to say that this policy directive is not correct to be proposed under the current circumstances that the transformation agenda of the GNU that we represent and the African National Congress Party that I represent in this committee?
Malatsi became minister less than 12 months ago. ANC ministers were in charge of this portfolio for 30 years. It was them who failed to transform the sector. It was them who persistently botched digital migration deadlines. It was under their lack of leadership that we saw only a handful of ICT companies dominate the sector and develop a monopoly that is almost impossible to dismantle today. This is a fact that Matafa and the ANC contingent fail to acknowledge as they suddenly wake up to their oversight responsibilities. As if that was not enough, what about this genius?
Your predecessors that I'm going to name, that have all come and gone sitting there. The former Minister Nyanda, 2009, 2011, former Minister Padeyachi, former Minister Pule, former Minister Karim, former Minister Kwele, former Minister Mutambi, former Minister Dlodlo, former Minister Kubai Ngubani, former Minister Stella Ndabeni, Nomvula Mkonyane, Ntshabeni, Ngungubele, and now here you are, 2024, and hopefully to 2025, because we can't afford another disaster like this. This department has been a disastrous waste of money.
That could have been impressive, except the Honorable Makhubele conveniently forgets that Dr. Ivy Matsipeka-Saburi was the last communications minister appointed by Thabo Mbeki. Current party boss, Jacob Zuma, appointed the majority of the disasters she speaks about. Those people, they represented scandal after scandal and another scandal. And it was under their stewardship that this country failed to make any headway in the transformation and development of the ICT sector. Having said all of that, I don't think Elon Musk has any positive role to play in South Africa. He has declared himself an enemy of this nation by the role he has played in perpetuating lies about the persecution of white people in South Africa. And if Minister Malatsi's new policy directives are intended in any way to facilitate Musk's entry into our market, maybe efforts to block that are not such a bad thing after all.
I can't dissociate myself from the fact that the leader of my party was part of the delegation to the US. And I'm a proud member of my party. I'm not apologetic about that. And I belong to a party that is part of this administration. And this administration, through the president and the other members that were in that delegation, have consistently said there was no discussion whatsoever about Starlink. There wasn't. Some of you have shared this sentiment in there. So as to why you would want to implicate me into conversations I wasn't part of in order to shape a narrative of bullying, I don't know what that seeks to achieve, because each and every opportunity, that idea has been squashed by facts.
If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to share, like, and comment. Once again, thank you to all our subscribers. If you are not yet a subscriber, please consider doing so. See you in the next one.